For the first time in 20 years, Army becomes a member of a conference as Army joins the American as a football-only member. This will be the first time Army football joins a league since they were in Conference USA from 1998 to 2004. A handful of the members from Conference USA back then and the American today are the same, but there are some differences. Conference USA back then had TCU, Louisville, Cincinnati, Houston, Southern Miss, and the American today has Temple, UTSA, Tulsa, FAU, Rice, North Texas, and Charlotte. Army's overall record against TCU was 0-6 and 0-4 while in Conference USA, 3-6 against Louisville, 1-5 while in CUSA, 3-4 against Cincinnati, 2-3 while a member of CUSA, 3-5 against Houston, and 2-5 while in CUSA, and 0-3 all games while in Conference USA against Southern Miss. Overall, Army is 9-24 all time against those five schools for a winning percentage of .273, and while they were in Conference USA, they were 5-20 against those five schools for a winning percentage of .200. Conversely, with the American schools that were not in Conference USA back then, Army is 6-7 all time against Temple, 3-1 against UTSA, 0-1 against Tulsa, 4-4 against Rice, and 5-2 against UNT. That is an overall record of 18-15 for a .545 winning percentage. So while Army had competitive issues in Conference USA back from 1998 to 2004, the makeup of the American is going to make the competition a little easier for them. Evaluating Army's TV ratings is difficult because Army's TV ratings versus current G5 schools is a small sample size. CBS Sports Network isn't Nielsen rated, so the number of Army regular season games versus current G5 since 2013 is only about 9 or 10. Obviously, we're excluding the Army-Navy game. However, when you take the G5 versus G5 Saturday games since 2014 that accumulated over 1 million viewers, now this is Saturday games only because you're going up against a full slate of competition on Saturdays as opposed to weeknights where there's little to no competition. Then we're going to exclude bowl games, conference championship games, exclude 2020 because there were weeks where there were barely any competition, exclude week 0 for the same reason, little competition, and then no BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, or SMU, and no Army versus Navy game. There are only 7 games that reached 1 million viewers, and 3 of them were Army versus Air Force, and every second year that Army AFA game is going to be under an Army home game, so under the whatever TV deal Army would be a part of. Now there's the question, will Army's home games fall under the Americans ESPN contract as Army's CBS Sports deal runs through 2028? We'll find out the answers to that later on. ESPN, for comparison, gets 1 Navy home game every year, plus Navy's home Notre Dame game, which is really at a neutral site, every second year. The rest of the Navy home games, including versus AFA, go to CBS Sports. Navy's CBS Sports contract runs through 2027. So as of now, it's unclear how many of Army's home games would go under the American ESPN contract. I mean, it probably won't happen between now and 2028 since they're under a contract with CBS Sports, but afterwards that will be to be determined. But regardless, the fact that Army versus AFA, they have the top 3 rated games for Group of 5 versus Group of 5 on Saturday since 2014 shows the value Army has to the TV networks. Now, since Army has such a small sample size of Nielsen rated games against other Group of 5 schools, we can look at how does ESPN value Navy, because presumably they'd value Army similarly. So it'd be kind of a by proxy analysis of Army by going through Navy. And if we look at the 7 American leftover schools, Navy, Memphis, Tulane, Tulsa, South Florida, Temple, and ECU, and we take the Americans' regular season conference games from 2015 to 2023, because Navy entered the league in 2015, obviously 2023 would be incomplete, and we take the ESPN control games and then see how ESPN divided them up between ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News, and then on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus. Navy had over 25% of those ESPN control games on either ABC or ESPN. And then once you factored in ESPN2, over 55% of those games were on ABC, ESPN, or ESPN2. And if we look at that in graph form, with the color all the way at the bottom being ABC, then the color second from the bottom being ESPN, then the color third from the bottom, which is orange, being ESPN2. You see that ESPN favored Navy quite favorably, putting them on the primary networks. They had the third highest percentage of games on either ABC or ESPN, behind only Memphis and USF. And then when you incorporated ABC, ESPN, or ESPN2, they had the second highest percentage behind only Memphis. Now, do Group of 5 schools get an attendance bump when they host Army? If you look at the 13 games where a Group of 5 school hosted Army since from 2018 to 2022, there were 13 of those games, and only one of these 13 games was homecoming, so only one of them had a homecoming bump. And 12 of the 13 received a bump in attendance by hosting Army. In fact, 11 of those 13 games had an attendance bump of at least 1,500, and 7 of these 13 games had an attendance bump of at least 4,000. So here's a graph of the 13 Group of 5 schools that hosted Army from 2018 to 2022 and what their attendance was that season when hosting Army. That's in brown. And then the blue is their season average for attendance. And as you can see in the graph, majority of these schools had a definitive attendance bump when hosting Army. Army is a prestigious school academically. The American will now have 4 schools ranked in the top 75 of the Wall Street Journal Times Higher Education rankings. Rice is number 18, Army number 47, Tulane and Navy are also in the top 75. When it comes to tenure Sagarin, Army ranks 6th in the New American. Memphis is first at 52nd, followed by Navy at 65th, Tulsa at 85th, Tulane at 86th, Temple at 87th, and Army at 90th. And when you look at the 5-year reported attendance, Army comes in 5th in the New American after ECU, Memphis, USF, and Navy. Army has a 5-year reported attendance of over 30,700. So to recap what Army brings to the American, first, viewership. Army's Commanders-in-Chief game against AFA played in the top 3 highest rated Saturday Group of 5 versus Group of 5 games since 2014. Obviously, that's current Group of 5 schools, not the ones who've left for the Power 4. Then there's the prestige of Army. Army is ranked number 29 in Forbes, second in the American only to Rice, and number 47 in Wall Street Journal Times Higher Education, second in the American only to Rice. Performance-wise, Army ranks 90th in tenure Sagarin, which would be 6th in the American. And then for fan support, Army, there are 30,704 5-year rolling attendance, would rank top 5 in the American. And Army looks to be a road draw between 2018 and 2022. 12 of 13 Group of 5 schools who hosted Army saw an attendance increase. 11 of the 13 by at least 1,000 above their season average, and 10 of the 13 by at least 2,000 above their season average.